Welcome to part 3 of the ultimate Loadbox comparison. In part 1 and 2 we've measured the tonal neutrality of the line out of all Loadboxes. If you haven't seen it yet, you can find the links to the videos in the description box below. Today we will check the aux Loadbox from Universal Audio, we will record some guitar tracks, check the latency and ground hum sensitivity of the device, and last but not least, we take a look at the overall response curve. Okay, let's start with the recordings of some guitar sounds, and please keep in mind for this and all coming sound tests, the load boxes are used in silent mode, means without a cabinet connected, because this will be my preferred setup for future recordings. As already mentioned in the last video, I will publish one video for each load box. None of the load boxes is sponsored, each one has been purchased with my own money. I'm not getting paid for making these videos, so I'm totally not influenced by any company. In case a Loadbox provides different switches to change the tone, I will record one track for each single setting and compare these tracks to find out which setting sounds best. The aux Loadbox in this video does not offer such additional switches. For an objective sound comparison of the line out, it's very important to use the same IRs for all load boxes. So let's now disable the cap simulation of the aux box. For this, in the mic settings we choose no mic means direct. However, in the setting for the room mics, that option does not exist. So we have to mute the channel. I also mute mic 2 and disable all engaged options. Make also sure that no effect is enabled. The IRs and some reverb are provided by my XFX, as you can see a little later. Okay, now let's start to record some real guitar sounds with different guitars and amps through the aux Loadbox. For this I will record the DI track of the unprocessed guitar signal, so I'm able to reamp the tracks through all of my Loadboxes and compare the results without any changes in my playing, which is quite important for an accurate comparison. Additionally, I will record a track of the processed guitar sound. For the clean, mid-gain and high-gain sounds, different IRs will be used. Let's start with a clean sound through my König amp. For the mid-gain sound, I'm using the Friedman BE100 Deluxe. For the high-gain sound, I will use my EVH 5150 Stealth Edition. That sounded pretty good so far. Because there are no other sound options for the aux box, I will reamp the DI track and double check if the reamped track is identical to the original recording. There shouldn't be much difference. And I always try to double check my setup to avoid any mistakes. As you can see, it's almost perfect. The longer I will repeat the recorded track, the more flattened the curve gets. That's because the software needs some time to detect all recorded frequencies. Now let's take a look at the latency. For this I've already recorded a round trip track only with the DI box in between the input and output of my audio interface. And as you can see here, the latency is around 0.3 milliseconds, which is a fantastic value. As soon as the amp with the aux loadbox is in the loop, the latency goes up to 3.5 milliseconds. So the latency of the aux is around 3.2 milliseconds without any cap simulation engaged, which is a good value. Of course, to determine the latency, no IR loader was in the signal chain. Now let's take a look at the overall response curve. For this we compare the line out of the loadbox with the white noise input signal of the amp, which was fed into the power amp via the effects return loop. For more details, simply watch episode 1. As you can see, a low cut starts at 80 Hz, then there's a dent from 200 to 2 kHz of around -3 dB and kind of a high shelf starting at 2 kHz. Please keep in mind, what you see here is the overall response curve of the loadbox and the power tube amp. As we've already found out in the previous video, any reactive load also affects the power amp tube, so it's impossible, at least for me, to get an overall response curve for the loadbox only. However, in the final video of this series, we will compare all curves to find out if there's a correlation between the best sounding devices and the response curve. Now let's check the ground hum sensibility. As you can see in the diagram, I'm using two DI boxes, one straight after the output of the audio interface and another after the line out of the load box. For the test I'm using the high gain channel of my EVH amp, so we can clearly hear a difference. We will do 4 tests, first with both DI boxes engaged in the signal chain, next without the second DI box, then without any DI box, and finally without the first DI box. As you could hear, the first 2 setups work perfect. In the third and fourth configuration, a massive ground hum occurs. That's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Please like and subscribe, because why not? I'm here to bring you content that you can't find on any other channel.